ProRevenge is one thing, but Holy Revenge is a whole other level, pun intended. We'll get into that story in just a bit, but first, squatter drama is why it's not wise to rip people off. My father passed away back in April. The day he died, the family occupants of his home, Mr. A and Miss M, and their dishonest contractor friend, Mr. K, decided to use my dad's debit card that was left at the house while he was taken to the hospital. They charged several $100s to Mr. K's business, and I assume they planned to split it. I guess they figured nobody would miss the money. The following day, Mr. A, who was arguing with Miss M, told me about the charge, and I was able to get the bank to reverse the charges, since my dad was dead when they were made. I was able to get the bogus bill from Mr. K, showing my dad's forged signature. But wait, there's more. Mr. A and Miss M decided they weren't going to leave the house unless we paid them thousands in cash for a keys plan. They were going to squat for as long as it took to break me down and give them money, because they knew I had to sell the house because the reverse mortgage required it to be paid off once my dad died. I finally caved, paid them $5K to leave. Only they didn't leave. I gave them notices to leave, had them sign it, but they wouldn't leave. They told me in text messages that they had a verbal agreement with my dad that they could stay, and they knew it would take months to work through the court system, and by that time the mortgage would be in default and the bank would take it. Finally, default notices came from the bank, and they knew they had to go, and I was finally able to list the house and sell it. The day before closing, the realtor gets a call from an insurance company regarding a claim at the property. So many months of stress, and I could just see the end slip away because of some claim that would delay the closing long enough for the bank to take the house. I call the insurance adjuster, who called the realtor. Aha! It's a rental insurance policy taken out in June, with water damage claim in July by Mr. A and Miss M. So I had a lovely chat with the adjuster and told them of the earlier fraud attempt, their attempts to extort money from me, and I told her I would bring the receipts. The adjuster shared a copy of the forged rental agreement in my name, and the bill submitted by Mr. K. I happily shared my termination notice that I had both Mr. A and Miss M sign that showed they had to be out by June 30th. It showed both my signature and theirs back in June. Theirs matched the bogus rental agreement. Mine didn't. I shared the emails I had with Mr. K referring to the April fraud and my dad's forged signature. I shared a bank charge and reversal from Mr. K's company. I shared all the text messages where Mr. A admitted to not paying rent and trying to extort money, and the cherry on top was I was able to share pictures of the house that they left being a total wreck without the water damage that they claimed. While I may never know if the insurance company pressed fraud charges against the three thieves, I know the claim got denied because of my response. We closed on the house yesterday, and I blocked A's and M's numbers. I will finally get a decent night's sleep knowing I got the final word. I've said it many times before on this channel. I'll continue to say it. Paper trails document everything. You know, he said, she said, the telephone game. Facts get distorted. There can be nothing distorted about good, hardcore, readable evidence. The Glorical replied, "Wow, as soon as the debit card fraud hit, did you go to the police? Hopefully you'll never experience any of that again. Condolences on the loss of your dad." Slacker asked for the win replied, "I'm retired law enforcement. As a disclaimer, I was not a fraud detective. It sucks, but all criminal offenses need a complaint, which is the person or corporation that was the victim of a crime. They're the only ones that can press charges. In most fraud by credit or debit card cases, it's not the person who's the account holder that ends up being the victim. That's because, like in this case, the bank reverses the charge and ends up being the victim. Most banks won't go through the legal process of pushing for criminal convictions on these cases because it's cheaper to take the financial loss. That's why you see criminals that do this get away with it on a regular basis. It takes a serious amount of money for banks to want to get involved in prosecution. Also, hey, what's up everybody? My name is Brendan, and if you guys enjoy these ProRevenge videos for some reason, it would be amazing if you liked the video or commented down below if you're listening to our podcast. Now then, our next story is, my best friend learned why you don't steal my snacks. So, my roommate has this terrible habit of just borrowing my stuff, usually food. I'll grab some snacks, leave them in my room, and by the time I'm craving them, boom, gone. Last week, I splurged on this giant bag of Flamin' Hot Cheetos. They were my special treat after a rough week. I put them in my room with a note that literally said, "Jake, I will end you if you eat these." Naturally, they disappeared the next day. Now, I'm not into yelling or drama. I prefer petty revenge. So I came up with the most harmless but glorious prank. Jake has a desk job and hates getting up once he sits down. So the night before, while we were hanging out, I snuck into his backpack and filled the entire bottom pocket with a bunch of loose Cheetos. Like, not even in the bag. I crushed them into Cheeto dust too, so it was extra messy. Next morning, he grabs his laptop and notes like usual. What he didn't realize is that he had a meeting with his boss later. He reaches in his bag at work and bam! Bright orange Cheeto apocalypse all over his important paperwork and laptop. I got a furious text. "Dude, what did you do to my bag?" He was mad for a day, but then admitted it was fair play. He's also stopped stealing my snacks. So far. Petty revenge complete. Well, this is a great story in general, but I mean, ultimately, even though he deserved it, it's also nice to know that he admitted the error of his ways and that it was all turnabout's fair play and, he owned it. So good for you. Both OP and the victim here. Daz Einhorn17 replied, "I couldn't imagine being hungry and going into someone else's room to solve it." Spinner of Yam commented, "My roommates would be slaughtered if they did this. I have two I share food with. It's because we replace things before they run out if we weren't the one who bought it. If I feed them dinner, they reciprocate. The other two roommates, they're why the three of us have mini fridges in our rooms. Anything that's heat and eat gets stolen. If I batch cook, leftovers have to go in my room. The funny thing is that because those two don't cook, ingredients like raw meat and vegetables can be kept in the kitchen. I have a shelf in the pantry full of dry goods. The shelves for those two have ramen bowls, and that's it." Our next story is, careful on what food you steal. Back in the early 2000s, I worked for Hooters as a manager. We had this old dude that was funny as heck. One day he played a little prank. He made what looked like Blondie or peanut butter squares that were made from the flour that was filtered out of the fry oil. We filtered the oil every night. There was always a layer of cooked flour and we could toss it out. Like clockwork, one person would grab one and take a bite and then spit it out. Fast forward 10 years. I'm now working in sales/customer service at a large cable and internet company. We had about 300 people total in this office, and I worked second shift. There were maybe 50 people on the shift. Every night, someone would take my food. I wanted to teach them a lesson. First, I wanted to make brownies with laxative baked in. My roommate stopped me and said, "Why, if the person gets really sick or harmed? They might fire you." So that's when it hit me. The fry oil blondies. I went up to the store to get the things I needed to make Hooters-style wings. I think we made 30 or 40 wings that night in my little tabletop fryer. I let the oil cool down a bit and started to filter the oil to make my blondies. The next night, I took them to work. My desk was close to the break room where the refrigerator was. 2 hours into my shift, I found out who the thief was. It was one of the quality service managers. She was hacking and spitting all over the floor, demanding to know who tried to poison her. I could not control my laughter. She saw me and went to my manager. He took me into the office and asked what I thought was funny. When I explained to him what I had done, he was trying to stay professional but cracked. After he found out it was not poison and she had brought this on herself, he told me to go back to work. She was written up for taking someone else's food. I told everyone what happened. She left the company a few months later. Crazy, my food never got touched after that. Absolutely disgusting. That sounds gross as hell, but I also love it. I'm here for it. She had it coming. She absolutely did. F. Anna Banana replied, "How that the person stealing food would have the audacity to complain about it being poison. She deserved it, and then some. That was a hella funny. You should have secretly recorded her reaction for craps and giggles." I am cold and I'm tired replied, "Unfortunately not. That's why the advice against putting laxatives in food. People have successfully brought charges against others for booby-trapping their own food. Stems out of thieves getting hurt while breaking into someone's home and successfully filing claims against the homeowner's liability insurance." Our next story is Petty Revenge on a Smelly Teacher. At my school I went to for years, 9 to 11, US would be high school, the language department head teacher was a heavy smoker. She came to survey our class one day for some reason, and she sat one row over and one row back of me. She had that lingering death crud smell of a smoker, and I didn't appreciate having to smell it. Also, I was kind of an arsehole, so I took revenge. I rummaged a Bic Biro pen out from my knapsack. That's the cylindrical white plastic kind, versus the previous clear hexagonal design. What else is white and cylindrical? Yep, I held that pen between two fingers, occasionally put it in my mouth, and then took it out again. Periodically flicked it with my thumb or tapped it with my pointer finger, right in her line of sight. Not big, exaggerated motions that might get me pinched for disrupting, just enough for her to unavoidably see, and to center punch her nerves. She grew steadily more angsty and fidgety as the class period dragged on, and when the bell went, she flew out of the door and down the corridor in the direction of the staff room. Got him, this is absolutely brilliant, Chevrolet commented. Peak petty, LMAO. Honestly, it's the little psychological jabs like this that live rent-free in someone's head way longer than any big act of revenge. Low effort, high impact, 10 out of 10 execution. Our next story is Thin Walls and a Frequency Generator. A number of years ago, I lived in Montreal in a rather thin-walled apartment. My neighbor's kitchen was against my bedroom, and at some point, the absolute delight of a human being started turning her radio on shortly before 6 a.m. I tried to talk to her and asked for her to simply move it away from the shared wall or not use it. No change. I sent a registered letter to the landlord asking for some action to be taken, but again, nothing changed. At the time, I was studying electrical engineering and learning about how radios worked. Internally to the radio, whatever the frequency you're listening to gets converted to what's known as an intermediate frequency, and then the rest of the circuitry amplifies and filters this one frequency. I had used frequency generators at work, so I asked if I could borrow one for a bit. I got a few strange looks and questions, but ultimately got permission to borrow one for a few weeks. I set it up in my bedroom, did the basic settings for an unmodulated frequency, matching the intermediate frequency for the neighbor's radio, jammed a rudimentary antenna in the back, and went to bed. When I was woken by the neighbor's radio, instead of just jamming in earplugs and trying to go back to sleep, I jumped up and switched on the frequency generator. Suddenly, silence from the neighbor's radio. I then modulated my signal with a 1 kHz tone that was extremely annoying, but my earplugs filtered it out. Knowing that this could interfere with others and also be illegal, I tested it against my own radio, which is about 5 meters away, and it wasn't impacted. Was it better shielding against my attack, or was it the distance? I didn't care. The neighbor stopped using her radio in her kitchen, and I returned the frequency generator after a couple of weeks. Yeah, I mean, why not take it back? Mission accomplished, you got her to stop playing the music. That just sounds piercingly annoying. Naive Figure 188 replied, had a friend in college and they set up their own pirate radio station back in the late 70s. They gave it up when they noticed panel trucks with antennas roaming their neighborhood. They were about a fourth of a mile from each other. It was like a scene out of a movie. FAA, FO. Rounding Error replied, my uncle set up one of these during college too. He built a battery-powered transmitter with a tape player and put it into a garbage can so it looked innocuous and he could reposition it regularly. It was supposed to have a low range, but his friend was able to hear it several miles from campus on his car radio. Once he realized it was broadcasting that far, he quit doing it before he got caught. Our next story is, my parents are petty revenge experts. This is my third post. I promised someone on an earlier comment that I would tell my favorite petty parent story. They taught me everything I know. I had moved from the West Coast to the East Coast and was back living with my parents while I finished college. Again, got a job, found my own place, etc. For a reason I can't remember, I was sitting in their room watching TV. There was an exercise bike parked at the end of their bed. My dad came in with an armload of laundry, and I heard my mother yell up the stairs, "Put them away! Not all over my exercise bike!" My dad walks into the closet, puts his clothes away, comes out carrying an armload of different clothes, drapes them artfully all over the bike, and leaves. A few minutes later, my mom walks in too, looks at the bike, and sighs heavily. I said, you know he does that just to rile you up, right? Oh, I know. That's why I leave all my clothes draped over the edge of the bathtub, so he trips over them whenever he comes and goes from there. It's a game we play. They've been happily married since 1968, you do the math, and do stuff like this to each other all the time. They giggle about it constantly. However, beware getting on their bad side. They keep their skills honed on each other, so they're ready to dispense petty revenge whenever necessary. Relationship goals. Over 50 years married and just taking fun, casual, petty revenge on each other back and forth. Gotta love it. That's actually low-key kind of endearing. Different Take for You replied, thank you. I think this is starting to happen at my house. 30 plus years married and I have to stop myself sometimes from leaving things out or putting things up just out of spite. Opposite of where significant other would like them. I think significant other leaves things out just to grind my gears sometimes. No proof, nothing consistent, so maybe it's age. My favorite thing is to say, if you're not nice to your helper can choose not to be your helper. It usually causes an instant attitude adjustment. Our next story is, you gave me the wrong food, I will throw up all over your golden throne. I will start by saying this happened when I was 16 years old, so about 15 years ago. I cannot eat red meat, pork, fish, or melons. Nothing to do with religion, but I get really bad stomach ache from eating those, and with meat, I'll start throwing up violently pretty much straight away. Everyone in my family and friend circle knows it, as that's something that's been happening since I was a toddler. I'm fine with bird meat and seafood. Now I have a friend who comes from a very wealthy family. I'll call her Anna. We were celebrating her 15th birthday, and because of this, her dad was having a barbecue over at his new house. Bear in mind, I know Anna and her family since Anna was 9, and when she was 14, she was practically living with me and my family as we went to the same school and we were into the same hobbies, and her family would also come around for food, barbecues, every other weekend with my family. Basically adults drinking and having fun. So they're perfectly aware of what I can and can't eat. Their new house is about 1.5 hours drive from my parents' house, as it's located out of the city and is by the lake. Before the barbecue started, Anna's dad showed the house as he helped to build it, and he was really proud of the golden throne he has on one of the bathrooms. It's a toilet that's stylized as a golden throne. I do not know if it was actually golden or not. I was 16 and had no idea of a difference. He specified how we shouldn't use it or play with it, as it cost a lot of money, and it's basically his toy. The throne is downstairs and is in the closest bathroom to the outside. There's another one, but it's significantly further away, and you have to go through some other rooms to get to it. Now, as we're all underage, he was cooking meat for the barbecue. He put some white meat in front of my plate, which I assumed was chicken, since I've only tried pork as a toddler and have never had it after my reaction to it, so I have no idea how it tastes or looks like. Upon tasting it, I've mentioned it tastes weird and the texture is weird, but I was assured by him that it is chicken. Halfway through, my stomach starts to hurt like heck, and I can finally click that something is wrong, as it wouldn't react this way to chicken. At the same time, noticing my reaction, the father admits it was pork. I get up and start running through the doors as I feel I'm about to throw up, and, of course, end up in the bathroom with the throne where I continue to be violently sick. My friend runs after me, followed by her dad. Her dad is clearly not happy about me destroying his throne, so he's starting to tell me off. I, of course, don't hear him as I'm still sick. My friend has a full-on go at her dad, saying he shouldn't have fed me pork. Her dad tries to brush it off, saying he thought I was just picky, as that's what Anna told him. I managed to just half say, asking for my parents to pick me up, as my stomach hurts, before getting into another passionate hug with the golden throne. It took my parents about an hour to get to me. They were doing some shopping in IKEA nearby, and my dad might have broken a few speed limit laws. And all this time, I was occupying the bathroom. My mother was furious and was in full-on attack mode on my friend's dad, calling him all sorts of names and saying how dangerous it is, as I might end up in the hospital and will have a few miserable days ahead of me. The dad was trying to say I'm fine now, but just before getting in the car, I felt another wave coming, and since I was not expecting it, I threw up all over him. My mom laughed, but also turned to Anna and said that she won't feel comfortable with letting me staying with her or celebrating anything with Anna's dad around due to what happened, and she doesn't think I would want to once I'm older. This made Anna upset, as it was her birthday, so she ended up having a go at her dad as well. I haven't been around their place since. I did spend a few days in bed with stomach pain and had a doctor's visit to make sure I'm not totally freaked with Anna's dad footing the bill for out-of-hours call-out. We don't live in the US, so it was about $50 to $70 price-wise. Me and Anna ended up falling apart a few years after, as she started to feel I was responsible for ruining her birthday and tried to plot pointless revenge schemes. Yeah, that's terrible. Me personally, I am deathly allergic to shellfish, and if someone pulled this crap on me, we would not be friends anymore. That's not funny. It's dangerous. You're playing with someone's health, their livelihood. Not cool. So even though the revenge was involuntary, it's revenge nonetheless. Puke all over his golden throne. Skulldiver Girl replied, I had a similar thing happen to me last year with my husband's family. They know I am and have been a strict vegetarian for 40 years, and yet they fed me food made with chicken stock. About an hour later, I felt like heck, super sweaty and crampy, and got a case of the massive craps. I will never trust their food again, jerkholes. And Opie replied to this, ouch, one of my good friends is a vegetarian for about 10 to 15 years. And while every now and then I do joke about feeding him meat by accident, both of us know I won't. Even if I get him a snack on my way to work, I triple check it's vegetarian friendly and put it in a different bag to non-vegetarian friendly ones. I've heard people who are vegetarians and vegans can have nasty reactions to meat if suddenly introduced. So what your family did is just mean. Our next story is Grandma Angie's Petty Revenge. I'm lucky enough to have had my grandmother in my life for 52 years. She died last year at the age of 106, on her 106th and a half birthday to be exact. And until her final illness, she remained mentally sharp even as her body struggled. I'm the oldest of her grandchildren, one of two girls. She had only sons. And between my sister and me, the jewelry lover. I mention this because literally everyone in the family, myself included, thought I would inherit her wedding set. Her only valuable jewelry, both financially and sentimentally. Yes, that makes me sound entitled, but we all had the same assumption, including my wonderful sister, who did receive the rings. How is this petty revenge? Picture it, Bay Area, California, 1990-something. Grandma Angie had given me a few pieces of jewelry for various birthdays and other special occasions, starting when I was about 16. I loved them all, and was grateful for her thoughtfulness and generosity. That is, until she bought me the carousel ring. I was maybe 20 or 21, and had small hands. The ring was gold and looked how I imagined the top of a carousel, or maybe a circus tent, would look from above. It was, in my young and sassy opinion, ugly. It was also objectively too large, by several sizes. But though I was sassy, I was not brave or confrontational. So instead of womaning up and gently telling Grandma it wasn't my style, but I'd love it if we picked out something else together, I exchanged it for a pair of earrings, which I still have, and told her that the jeweler told me that it could not be sized down small enough for my finger. I lied, but Grandma was smart and probably saw right through me. She went back to the jeweler, and the next time I saw her, she was wearing the carousel ring and made a comment about how it was sized to fit her perfectly. Still, I didn't confess. Only after she passed and left her wedding ring set to my sister, who burst into happy tears, had it sized and repaired so it fits her and wears it every day, did I begin to realize that Grandma had never bought me another piece of jewelry in the 30-plus years that we had left together after the carousel ring. I didn't notice because she was super loving, generous, and thoughtful, and also supremely careful to be fair to all her grandchildren. For example, she helped me in college by paying for my textbooks. My sisters were more expensive when she went to college, and Grandma cut me a check for the difference without my asking. I never would have. So, in every other way, she was fiercely fair, but her final, petty revenge was had, all because my younger self didn't have the courage to tell her I didn't like an ugly ring. P.S. The carousel ring wasn't designated for anyone specifically, but my siblings and cousins thought it should be mine, and so it is. I still don't wear it. Yeah, Grandma's rule. I mean, what else is there to say? They're just so smart and wise and witty. Oh, Grandmas, I love them. Oblivious Turtle 97 replied, "To be frank, it sounds like maybe she left it with Sister, not out of pettiness towards you, but because she didn't trust you not to sell it. She may have just never bought you jewelry again because you lied about why you exchanged it. So, as far as Grandma knew, you'd exchange, sell, or refund whatever jewelry she got or gave you. As you said, you didn't ever tell her the truth about the ring and just lied, which meant you couldn't have given her a proper apology either, because that would have required you telling the truth." Our next story is Holey Revenge. I worked at a place with Miss Wright, first name always. Although she was a coworker, not our supervisor, she knew the correct and only way to do things. Everything. This made her a popular item of discussion, but not popular among us. We tolerated her as best we could, but enjoyed giving her subtle tweaks. She was an orderly individual, very neat, and everything had to be just right. It wasn't, oh, she has OCD, humor her. More like, the stapler goes here and only here. Oh, your stapler is wrong. Let me fix that for you. So, of course, the first person in the office in the morning might accidentally switch 2 books on her shelf, or stack her inbox underneath the outbox. If she asked about it, someone would suggest that perhaps the cleaning crew moved it, or that she was mistaken. This was decades ago. We had desks, not cubicles, and our desks had phones, and paper was the primary storage and communication media. Our office had copiers and printers and scanners, and none of that newfangled multi-function stuff. The other department in our building published and managed technical documents the size of phone books. Wow, I'm out of date. Imagine 500 to 1500 page manuals. They had printers the size of small cars to produce these manuals. The repo room included several triple drill press machines for cutting holes in the manuals so they could be put in binders. One time, Miss Wright decided to rearrange a coworker's desk. Nothing really bad, since everything was in folders or organizers, but still weird. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. Much later, the coworker got his revenge. He went to the repo room and came back with a coffee cup full of the holes punched from the manuals. He covered an 11 by 17 piece of paper with a layer of the holes, removed Miss Wright's center desk drawer, and taped one edge of the paper to the drawer, then carefully replaced it. Sometime later, Miss Wright sat down, opened her drawer, and dumped generous portions of holes all over her lap. When she noticed, she stood up, spreading the holes even more. Here's the coworker's true genius. For months afterwards, every few days, he'd sprinkle a few holes around her desk, and when she was away from it, she went nuts trying to figure out where they were coming from. Taking out the drawers, looking underneath it, shuffling through the books on her shelf. Wintermute 3333 replied, "It sounds like she was on the spectrum, not OCD, but a need to have everything in a familiar place. Ask me how I know. Those hole punches probably affected her a lot more than intended." Alright everybody, that is all the time we got for today. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and comment down below, and if you want to check out any of our other videos, click the video on the right. I got nothing else for you. I will see you all next time.